Compared to other Metroidvanias, Animal Well offers a different sense of mastery and empowerment over the environment and in relation to your playable character. The upgrades you discover while exploring the map don't directly augment the little round creature you play as. Rather, they are random, everyday items that allow you to deploy certain objects into the world. These can then be used to aid traversal or solve puzzles. For example, one of the first items you find, and I won't mention any others to avoid spoilers, but one of the first items you'll find is the bubble wand, which allows you to blow bubbles, which can then be jumped on to reach higher ground. There is no double jump to unlock, a recurring upgrade in many Metroidvanias. The way it feels to play the character is unchanged throughout a playthrough. It moves in a very simple way, walking left and right and jumping. This simple round creature is a mere conduit through which you can add new objects to the world, and the playable character itself experiences no growth and remains unchanged. Compare this to Samus from the Metroid games, or Sargon from Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Most upgrades enhance traversal by changing the playable characters themselves, how they move and attack within the world as a means of gaining mastery over that world. A consequence of this difference for Animal Well is that you don't get the same feeling of mastery and dominance over your environment. I speak as someone who completed the main story, and I understand that there is still much to discover and even new items to unlock post-credits, which could possibly serve as a counterpoint. And these remaining mysteries only add to the lack of a more traditional Metroidvania power trip. But the consequence of all this is that Animal Well seems uninterested in making the player feel powerful. Clever maybe because this is a puzzle game, but not themselves powerful. So there is a non-violence to the experience. Even though there are some creatures to kill, it's never essential except for the bosses, and these are always defeated in an indirect sort of way, in the form of a puzzle. And many of the items you get feel a bit useless, like it's not initially clear how they are going to help you, and their applications are specific to the puzzles. This is unlike, say, a blaster upgrade that can be applied universally to pretty much any problem, in the way violence assumes itself to be a potential solution to any problem, in the way video games love to solve problems with violence. Violence is a blanket solution to any situation, but it can never solve the problem of itself. Metroidvanias are video games about colonization, and in that sense they also perform it. You acquire new abilities which allow you to dominate and control more of the map until the entire play space can be easily traversed, and you are equipped to exterminate anything that crosses your path. The first Metroid game even takes place on an alien planet where you kill every native life form you encounter. Granted, Samus isn't there for that. She's there to defeat the Mother Brain and stop the space pirates who stole the Metroid and want to use it as a biological weapon. But why did the Galactic Federation have a Metroid to begin with, and why were they doing experiments on it? The Galactic Federation is a colonizing force. But I'm digressing because it's the way these games are played, irrespective of their stories, that makes them a performance of the gesture of colonialism and its violence. The satisfaction we get from these games, the sense of discovery, is directly attached to the sense of mastery that follows. And this is the most violent thing about these games. It's not the case-by-case death animations, it's the basic premise of dominating a space through the acquisition of abilities and tools that will enable the penetration of every part of it. Perhaps Animal Well then is the beginning of the video game discovering a kind of response to that. It's a discovery of a new posture the player might adopt in relation to the play space or environment, which is a coexistence rather than a mastery. It generates an experience of solving puzzles along with the world rather than against it. I don't want to say that Animal Well is the first game to do this, but it did feel novel to me, especially against other Metroidvanias I've played. I also don't want to suggest that the video game itself, more broadly, needs to be decolonized according to the popular discourse surrounding that concept, because Animal Well shows us that the lived experience of a video game, at least its potentiality, is neutral. Or better, neither, in regards to those issues. It isn't confined by its status as a Metroidvania to perform those hyper-individualist and colonizing progression systems, not by virtue of its own genius or any special qualities within itself, but for what it takes for itself de jure as a video game. The violence of other Metroidvanias I've mentioned is not for an essentialism within the genre itself, but for a simple lack of thought or wherewithal or desire to do something otherwise. The video game image can contain anything you like, and any limitations are hallucinatory. Hallucinatory, not to dismiss them or say they are not real, but the video game's willingness to violate those boundaries is what can undermine them in popular and academic discourse. And essays like this are to point to that lived experience of the video game and to frame it as a lived critique of the narrowness of our discussions, to support the generation of new experiences which are neither. That is, they are outside what is currently thinkable in discussions around decolonization. Animal World doesn't decolonize exactly, because it's still a Metroidvania. You still have to traverse the environment and overcome, in a sense, the creatures you encounter. However, it shows itself to enjoy a freedom as a video game, which precedes its status as a Metroidvania. Rather than pushing against what Metroidvanias are, Animal World performs that genre again, only this time to discover new postures or identities within the image event. We can regard these sorts of performances as a kind of thought, unique to video games, uninterested in reflecting or contradicting past instances, but which is focused unidirectionally on creatively resolving the next image. This is how video games are played. In this way, video games think non-philosophically. In this way, Animal World performs the Metroidvania in new ways, to perform a semblance of colonization in new ways which are non-violent.